We need you. We need your voice, your energy, your ideas, and your experience. We need you in the room this year. Oh, hey, it's Carmen, and this is the Permission Slip podcast. And what the heck am I talking about today? We need you to get in the room with a new generation of thought leaders and change makers. And so you can be so inspired. You're going to get full body chills. You can be so inspired and you can get the tools and the resources and the support and the collaboration. Yeah, people that actually want to collaborate with you and the other thought leaders and change makers in the room and want to hear from you. We need you in the room September 20th through 21st in Bend, Oregon at the Amplify Your Life World Conference. Because guess what? You will not only have the opportunity to attend this amazing event, you'll have an opportunity to join a high-level mastermind that's included with your ticket. So you get to know people before, during, and after the event, those types of connections that you need that can be the catalyst to your next level in your personal and professional life. Yeah, you get that. And you get an opportunity to be showcased on stage. So we need you in this room. The link is in the show notes, or just head on over to Instagram, shoot me the word Amplify in the DMs, and I will send you all of the information. But as I was thinking about the event and my team and I, and we were planning, it was so exciting. And we were reflecting back on a couple years ago in 2022. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, we actually did a podcast tour across the United States. So we were in Salem, Oregon. We were in Phoenix, Arizona. We were in Miami Beach, Miami. We were in Colorado Springs. We were in so many places. And what the intention of that was really to bring together, just like we're doing at the Amplify Your Life World event, but to bring together thought leaders and change makers in a room, people whose voices and energy need to be amplified and heard, and who want to collaborate with other people. Because as we know, where our skill set ends, our network begins, and that is the catalyst to our next level. And so what we are doing on today's podcast is just a little intro to get you amped up, because we want you in the room. What we're doing on this podcast is we are replaying episode 92 of the podcast, which was the podcast tour that we did in Phoenix, Arizona. So one of the thought leaders that we showcased on this podcast is my friend Danielle Nicole, who is a Reiki master, an intuitive, and a coach. So this is her and I jamming out about all things well-being hacks for successful women. Now, I want to make sure that you know, if you are listening to this podcast, that the event, the Amplify Your Life event, is not only for women. It's for men and women, because for years and years and years, over the decade that we have been operating our company and having our coaching practice and putting together in-person events, we've heard time and time again the fear of, I don't want to outgrow my partner. And I know in my personal life with Joel, with my significant other, when we invested in something together and joined a couples mastermind together, we were able not only to expand personally and with our relationship, but our vision and our dreaming was so expansive. There was so much more available to us because we were doing it together. And it's so powerful. So I highly, highly encourage you to attend with your significant other. If you can't, totally fine. You'll still find your bestie there. It'll still be great. We do actually have a couples add-on experience as something separate that you can add on if you want to really increase the intimacy with your partner. Now, with all of that being said, we can't wait to see you in September in Bend, in person. We need you. We need your voice. We need your energy. We need your ideas and your experience. And get ready to make magic together. Get ready to expand. Get ready for full body chills over and over and over again, to shift your perspective and to get the tools and resources and the connections that you need to be able to grow both personally and professionally. No, I know you're going to enjoy this episode. It was so fun. I talk about one of the biggest blocks that we do as women, especially as go-getters, and that's self-isolating. So if you've ever felt like you isolate or double down or you don't reach out enough, this episode is for you. So we will see you in September in Bend, Oregon at the Amplify Your Life World Conference. And thank you so much for listening to the show. If you love it, as always, make sure to share it with someone. And if it's been a minute since you gave a rating and review, you can now do ratings on Spotify, or if you want to do it on Apple, we would appreciate.
So earlier this year, I kept getting this download, like, Carmen, you need to use your voice more in a bigger way. You need to bring people together in community. I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm trying. What more do you want me to do? Because I do things like retreats. My next retreat is coming up in October in Tulum. Such a magical experience it's going to be. I'm like, I'm doing it. It's like, do it more in smaller community settings. And so we came up with this idea that I might have heard somewhere from someone, and I thought, I'm going to do that. And so we started in Oregon with the podcast tour in April, and it was so wonderful. And now we're here, so West Coast. What do we call this? Like mid-states? Southwest. And then we're going to go East Coast for Miami Beach in August. But here's the intention for this. And the women that I work with in my holistic life coaching practice, often I find they don't have deep intentional relationships. They have a number of relationships that maybe they've even had for a long time, but they don't have deep intentional relationships. So what happens is we're all doing all the things. We're doing all the health things, all the career and business things, the relationship things, but we still feel unfulfilled. We feel lonely. Because what have we learned? We need to be strong, independent women, and we need to do it all just like the guys do, right? And we don't need to ask for help, and we're going to reach all of our goals. But it's exhausting because we're self-isolating. And then what happens when we feel lonely? We go in more instead of reaching out. And so I'm here to say, like, we don't have to do that anymore. And this is our opportunity to make deep, intentional connections. And we're going to start with that today with a little activity. So you might notice that I have a guest here. This is Danielle. She's going to be speaking next, but you might also notice that I talked about that Dr. Laura was going to be here, and Alex Bradbury, the founder of the Sparkle Bar. And so we always are so excited to have such a great plan and everything work out so perfect to our plan, right? And that's how everything works in life. But guess what? So Alex has COVID and Dr. Laura has the stomach flu, and so they won't be here. But what a great gift and opportunity to experience something different. So Danielle and I just sort of put our heads together and we're like, we're going to bring something different to the group. So are you excited for that? Yes, we are so excited about that too. So I was connected with Danielle, and this is really the power of connection and being here in this room, because you don't know everybody. So I have a friend that is in a mastermind with me, like 5 years ago. And I was looking for speakers at a virtual event that I was hosting in 2020. She said, oh, my girl Carrie, she does this. So I connected with Carrie. Carrie was great. And I had a meditation person lined up, all this stuff. And then the meditation person dropped out last minute. And so I was talking with Carrie. She goes, oh my gosh, I know the perfect person. I do not know why I didn't think of her. And it was Danielle. And she has been such a blessing in my life. So I went through a Reiki certification with her because she is a Reiki master, an intuitive healer. She puts on workshops and retreats and lots of sacred ceremonies in person now, mostly. But she does some work online too. Her background is in corporate sales. I love that she's always like, I'm a sales ninja. But now,
very different.
Very different, right? Masculine and feminine energy. But today she's really going to be talking to us about taking a pause. Because all too often, we have a chronic nervous system activation. And we don't realize it. We don't realize because we're in the morning, we're doing our journaling and our meditation and our morning routine, and we're feeling super high vibe. But then it, like that thing that we've done for years and years and years, that go factor, it kicks in. And all day long, we're in just this chronic state of going. And I'll talk a little bit later about how that affects our physical body and our health. But this morning, Danielle is going to talk a little bit about some practices that we can do anytime throughout the day to get back in that. You probably have heard rest and digest, but I like to call it stay and play, because wouldn't it be fun to have more play in our lives? So welcome.
Oh,
Come on up. You're up.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just such a random. I love when you're like, oh, I know someone because they knew someone, and then we knew somebody else, and then we all came together. And Carmen was such a, you had never really experienced Reiki before, correct?
Mm-mm.
And I did like a virtual circle with her group. And then from that, she was like, oh, I need to learn this. And I love that story because that's how I got into the work. So she flew out here and did a private immersion with me to do her level 1 certification. Then we did her level 2 certification. And it was all just her following her intuition on I know I need these tools and they need to be in my back pocket. And I don't even know why, but I'm going to follow where I'm being guided. So
yes,
I love that so much because
you.
that was my story too. I went to a circle. I'd had the worst year of my life, 2013. You guys remember 2013? I was so stressed at work. I was traveling almost 90,000 miles in air miles every single, each year for years, doing corporate sales, giant seminars. I'd be in rooms with 400 to 500 people every single weekend. And now knowing what I know about energetics, the shit's going to hit the fan at some point, right? You can't do that. It's not sustainable. I was in a really high pressure. I was leading people through a sales process that was okay, in 3 days, you're going to give me 50 grand. It's one of the personal development seminars where we sold these big products of education and masterminds and things like that. Amazing experience. I had a lot of aha moments about who I was, and it was not where I came from. I had a very simple upbringing in Southern Virginia, 50 acres of land. My dad will live there till he dies. I will bury him on that land. And, my whole family had that story. We grew up in this really tiny town. I'm the weirdo who moved away and created something new. When I went through the process of getting into corporate America, no one in my family had, first off, gone to a big university. My mom went to college, but a little tiny college to be a teacher, because she's that was the only thing I was told I was allowed to do. Either you're going to be a nurse or a teacher. That was it. So I was able to go through and do something different. When I hit my first 6-figure year in that world, I was 30. I was one of the only females on my team. I was so proud of myself and thought I'd achieved it all, but my nervous system was fucked. Right? So we can use that word, right? We're good?
Yes, that's great.
We just did. Sorry.
Oh, disclaimer, we're going to cuss.
And so people probably, you guys, does anyone resonate with that story? You go and you achieve and then you're I'm hitting a wall. And I was in the Denver airport. I remember it so vividly. And I was walking. I had gone out. I think I was in New York the night before. We'd done a big bougie dinner, blah, 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 blah. Stayed up till 3 a.m. Flew out at 6 a.m. We've all been there too. I was in the Denver airport. I had gotten a mimosa because that's how you deal with chronic stress in the body. And I was walking and I was oh my God, I'd had my first panic attack. I didn't know what it was. I was oh, and they were yeah, you landed from really low, you're really high. Now your body's just freaking out. I went and found a medic, and I didn't even know they were at the airport. I was I need someone who looks official. And I was I promise I'm really responsible, but I feel I'm dying right now. Can you check my stats? Something is not right. And of course I go to the doctor. They're yeah, here's a Xanax. Carry on, right? You're successful, you're good, keep doing what you're doing. That whole story led me to showing up at my yoga studio for a Reiki circle one night, not knowing what it was. And I was I'm just gonna lay on this mat and someone fix me, right? It's not working. And I was not planning on telling all that story. So thanks, guys. Yeah, okay, someone needed to hear it, right? I always ask, just come through. So I lay on the mat, and the first person who laid his hands on me ended up being the husband of the teacher that I worked with for years. There were a couple in their 60s and just angels on earth. And the minute he laid his hands on me, I got a vision of a past life, oh, I'm supposed to do this work. It came through clear as day. At that point, I was still like rising the corporate ladder. I had no idea what to do with that information. I was like, okay, well, great. Thanks for that. And I was like, okay, I'll do a certification. I don't know what that means or anything, but I'll sign up for the first level. And so for years, it was just for me. I was getting certified, and I got certified up to my master level in Reiki. I was getting other certifications in different types of healing modalities, but it was just for me because I was like, I've got to figure out how to manage stress, anxiety, all these things. And then realizing too, after getting deeper in my work and now working with clients for a very long time, like what was happening is I was having an activation in my body of so much childhood trauma I had never dealt with, right? Like, oh, I'm successful, so like obviously it didn't, like I didn't end up in a ditch or on drugs somewhere, so like obviously I'm fine, right? And so many of us who are like high achievers are high achievers because it's like the other level of trauma response, right? So we either end up in the ditch on drugs, sometimes they dig their way out, sometimes they don't, or we end up over here and we're trying to prove that we're fine and that we're safe in our bodies. And no one can, we're good, I'm in control again, right? And so that was my journey with the work, and that's why I'm so passionate about it now, especially working with women who like have big dreams, have big goals, have things that they want to bring into the world that they're birthing, right? It's all just the birthing process. And with that though, as we're bringing these things into the world, guess what happens? Like we feel unsafe again in our bodies because we're doing something new and different. We have to really work through fear. And so many times the stories that are coming up are not even ours. You know, I've had the privilege of working with some of you in the room. And a lot of times when we go through a session, things I'll see, I'm an intuitive as well, so I'll see things in the body. And I'm like, oh, tell me about this story. And they'll sit for a moment and they'll be like, that's not mine. I'm like, okay, tell me about your mom's life, your grandmother's. And then we'll trace it back to something that's not even yours. And it's activated on a cellular level in the body. And so something happens, you go into fight or flight, and then that thing comes up, right? So this is what I'm like so like hell-bent on changing the narrative around, and I'm so glad that there's so many other people getting big platforms now to talk about that. Lindsay and I were just talking about Joe Dispenza has like such a beautiful, cut and dry, very masculine, very XYZ, which I love because we need that, like aspect of like understanding that sometimes so much of our behavior is because something happened to someone else and it wasn't even us. And so the beautiful thing is though, if it happened to someone else, well, you can change the story too. It changed your narrative when it happened in that thing eons ago. Well, guess what? Now we can change it to something else and something more expansive. And what we do when we go into a Reiki session or any type of healing work is you're essentially slowing the body down, because all these new ideas and all these new vibrations of who you are, who here does visualization exercises? Yeah, they're like crack, it's great. So you can sit there and literally be walking through this new version of yourself. But a lot of times what I'll see in session, and for myself, every time I do a session, I'm looking in a mirror because that's how we work. That's how energy works, right? You'll see that things are just kind of sitting here around us. We're walking towards it, but we're not getting to it because we're not bringing it into the body. If the things are programmed at a cellular level, well, then we got to get it into our body. Breath work's great for that. Movement is great for that. Mindful, like meditative movement is great for that. Yoga is great for that if you go with an intention. And these softer, really feminine practices like Reiki can also get you into a state. I always say we just have to get your system so calm. So all those things that are dancing around you can literally sink into the body. Can you breathe that into your existence and feel it like reverberate throughout your body? And a lot of times that's what we do in session. A lot of times at the end I get, something channels through and it's like, okay, this is something you need to hear right now, and I want you to feel when I speak, like feel it in your toes. Pull it in because it is you. It's been trying to get to you for so long. Who here believes that we're really supported and that there's like Spirit's always working to really conspire to like give us what we actually desire, right? And if you don't, please come talk to me. I'll prove it to you. We'll get you there. And the whole thing is like, you are supposed to be this, we're nothing but fractals of light, sorry, and we're flying around on a rock. Like, life's not that serious. So how do we play with that? And how do we like dip into creation and that creative spirit? And the first thing is allowing ourselves to receive the things that are meant for us. Is everyone still with me right now? Okay, cool. I didn't plan anything. So I was like, I always say, I just like prayed the whole way here, like, it'll come through. So what I want to talk about today are like the first 3 steps we can do. This is like the thing I always teach any new client that I'm working with. I used to go speak at companies in San Diego pre-COVID. I'm like, oh, I should get back to that when everyone was still in the office. And just do like these 3 simple steps. Because even though I was laughing, I was being interviewed last week on corporate wellness in the workplace, and I was like, I think it's so funny that for some reason, when we walk through like the doors of a building of our office, or even if we go to our laptop and we're doing our work, like if we're building a business, that we think that all the baggage and trauma just like sat over here, like it just goes away, like goes on hold while we go do our thing. That's not true, right? We operate every day with the programming within us. And so how do we incorporate knowing that we're a fully embodied human being when we're showing up to do our work? Whether we're in a corporate setting or in any sort of office, whether you're just living your life, like doing the work you love to do, or some of us are very blessed to do that. But still those gremlins come up, right? When we get our first big thing that all eyes are on us, we feel unsafe, right? Or we go through and have our first big idea we're launching. Guess what happens? We go into like, oh my God, and we have to work through it. The more we can tap into that feeling of receiving all the goodness that's coming to us, all the ideas that are flowing through, the more we can tap into receiving, knowing that we are really, really held all the time, like all the time. The easier it is to walk through and towards fear when we have these big things happening, right? Because you feel like you have an army around you. I always tell clients when I work with them, I was like, if you could see what I see in the room right now, because they'll call in, all their guides, everybody. I'm about to get real woo real quick, guys. You good with that? I was like, if you can see what I see in the room right now, you would never doubt yourself ever again, right? It's like so magical. If you could see the light that's coming through just for you, if you can see all the army of people who've been around you, people, guides, angels, whatever, who are here, like, you're good. Just keep walking. You trip, they're going to get you up, right? So how do we tap into that? So the 3 steps, and you guys are going to be like, this is so easy, Danielle. Like, great, you're so creative. Such original. Correct. Yes, I always say this is the easiest shit you're ever going to hear, but actually putting it into implementation is the hardest thing you'll ever do, especially when you're triggered, especially when someone's just pissed you off or you just got your heart really hurt, right? Someone says something, we were talking about being online, right? And one person says one mean thing on your Instagram video and you're like, right? And the reverberation of that is, what is it called? I was just reading about it. It's like the negative bias, essentially. We can read 10 great things about ourselves. Someone says one negative thing, and that's the shit that sticks. Because if we study frequency, joy, love, all of our joyful, abundant feelings, we've studied this, have a really light, high, gorgeous frequency. Shame, like doubt, all of that is heavy. It is heavy. It's harder to shake, and it sits literally down in our root right here. So we can literally, who has back pain? Lower back pain, chronic, anybody? Just me? Because that's where all of our stuff sits. We have to constantly like clear it out, right? I always say energetic practices, if you go to a healer, whether it's like a shamanic breathwork journey, you go to sound, you go to do Reiki with someone. Sam Harper and I work together a lot. She's a sound bowl healer here. And we did like a really beautiful session with one of her executive clients a couple months ago. That lady got Reiki and sound all in an hour. She got juiced up. It was great. But one of the things we were talking about is just how if you can, you'll feel that dense energy move, like as a practitioner, you feel it move out of the body because you can feel it at the beginning. it is so thick. Like, ugh. And you know that feeling when you're walking around, you're like, we feel heavy. That's those dense emotions sitting in our body. So, caveat, if we can go through these 3 steps, I promise you feel better. And you're gonna be like, okay, sure. We're gonna do it, and then I'm gonna lead you through a practice. The first step is just to observe. We've all heard this in every meditation thing we've ever done, right? Observe your thoughts, right? And you're probably thinking, how do I observe my thoughts? Like, I'm thinking that. So like you go into a tailspin. I always say imagine, just like anything that's coming through, imagine it just floating in front of you. Like you're watching, you know at Star Wars at the beginning where the thing just imagining all your thoughts like that and reading them. And then they're not in you, they're just there. Because 99% of them are not true, and it's some shit you heard along the way in your however many years of life. Or another one I love, imagine them falling out of your ears. Just like back down into the earth, let it go. So what do we observe? Our thoughts, like I just said. Our body. Our body is always trying to speak to us. Chronic back pain, just talked about it. Even I get like an achy arm sometimes. It's like one of my weird triggers. Like something will happen and my arm starts aching and I'm like, what is this? So we can have like tension or things that happen in our bodies. We all have our own unique tics, things that the way our body tries to speak to us. So just observing them. So if you're in a moment, even if you're feeling really elated, how does your body respond to that? Right? What is that feeling that you have? So your body, your thoughts, and then your environment. Are you comfortable where you are? I'm talking about the temperature in the room. Are you actually comfortable in the chair? Who has been sitting at their desk and then all of a sudden an hour later, like, have I been sitting like this the entire time and I'm like cramped in a position? Like, I do it all the time. I have like a weird thing I do with my legs. So our environment too, are we actually interacting with our environment in a way that is giving us comfort and safety? Or are we all cramped up, moving about, cold, when we can just actually adjust the temperature in the room or put a sweater on? We were talking about putting jeans on again after the pandemic.
Yeah.
First off, did they fit? Third of all, you're like, these are way more like constrictive than I remember. Even if they still fit, you're like, why did I do this to myself? So remembering, like, just paying attention to these types of things, especially, I always say at your desk, especially even if you're in a corporate setting, can you do certain things? When I had my office, when I used to work in the corporate world, everyone used to come sit in my office and they were like, I don't know why, I just love it in here. I'm like, yeah, bitch, I got incense going. I've got like dim light. Like it's the most soothing space in the entire building. Like, of course you want to be in here. So like making sure you create that space for yourself because you deserve it. Even in your car, like, what does it feel like to be in here? So observe thoughts, body, environment. You're just collecting data. Don't judge it. Make adjustments if it feels easy, simple, easeful, but just be aware. The next thing you're going to do once you've gone through that checklist, you have a question, Ashley? You good?
It was observe your thoughts, how your body feels.
Body feels, yeah. And then the environment. And then the second is, can you breathe for a minute? I caught myself yesterday. I was like on a walk and I was like, I haven't took a deep breath like into my belly. I teach this stuff every day. And I was like, I haven't taken a deep breath into my belly today. So take a minute. It doesn't have to be fancy breath work. This is just like take a breath down to the base of your spine. I'm going to lead you through it in a minute and let it go. If you do just one of those, like you're like, oh, life's okay. We're good. So breathe. And then the next and last step is to connect. Stayed on theme. You like that?
I like it.
Yeah. Is to connect. You can connect to yourself. So that can be, can you have a moment of gratitude for yourself? I suggest all three, the three I'm going to list. So connect to yourself. Can you look in the mirror and say something nice to you? Can you do something soothing for yourself? One of the things I teach all students is like, I always say do brushing. You go in a big room, you leave the grocery store, anything, and you feel like it was like crazy in there, brush, like honor your body, get that stuff off of you. You don't need anybody. You've got your own stuff. You don't need anybody else's. Like let it go. Connect to someone else a girlfriend, your partner, anyone, a stranger. Just chat. Hi, how are you? Use these cards. Have them in your back pocket. And then the last one is to whatever you believe in. God, spirit, source, I don't care. As long as it's something that's outside of you and you believe it's benevolent in nature and that it's leading and guiding you. I stayed away from saying God for so long because I was like a new age San Diego spiritual girl. And I was like, we don't go there. I had a very Baptist upbringing. I had a very uncomfortable relationship with God for a very long time. And just recently I was like, oh no, that's the easiest way to describe what I'm talking about. It's the most powerful word, so it is whatever you make it. And to me, it's just the interconnectivity of every single one of us. I truly believe, you can use this if you want to, that humans are like one organism on this planet, and each of us are a cell, and we have a role that we play. And if we didn't have you, then we wouldn't have you. We wouldn't have your gifts. We all work together. When someone's suffering disease, we have to go around that person and help them heal and bring them back. Right? All humans are interconnected that way. I mean, that's how ideas. Have you guys ever read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert? I love the chapter where she talks about how ideas come to us, right, from God, from source. And if you're not for me, it goes to the next person. We're all connected that way. And all these things come to you, all your big ideas, all the relationships that you have, because you're the person that's supposed to birth it into existence. You have everything, every experience, every trauma, all of it brought you to that point to receive that. So connect to yourself, to someone else, to God, to your universal source, whatever that is. Right? Easy. Or is it? All right, and then we're going to go into now a quick it's like we just did class, now we're going into lab. So then we're going to walk through it together. So get comfortable. And go ahead and close off your eyes if that's comfortable for you. I know that's what I said, you was okay. Do it. If you can, I would suggest putting both feet flat on the ground and placing both of your hands, palms down, on your thighs. And for just a moment, just notice. Can you connect to the thoughts that are running through your mind? And if your mind is racing, that's okay. The goal is just not to chase, to let it be. And if it feels good for you now, you can even imagine those thoughts just coming up, and maybe they just start to float away. Knowing that whatever you're supposed to remember later will always come back to you, and that it's absolutely safe to be in stillness. On your next inhale, you can start to tap into your body. Starting at the very top of your head. And just noticing if there's any tension, any constriction. Moving down the body. Becoming aware if there's any tightness in the jaw, and you can open and close the mouth if that feels good. If there's tension between the brows, you can move them up and down, create space. Moving down to the shoulders, the belly. Making any adjustments that you need, rolling the shoulders down and back or moving gently in your chair. Continuing down the body, just noticing the hips and the thighs and the knees. All the way down to the toes. If you do feel constriction or tightness, simply bring the breath to that space and imagine creating expansion there so that the body can do whatever it's designed to do. Now noticing the environment. You can hear the hum of the AC. Voices outside. Even the temperature on your skin. Or the way your clothes feel draped across your body. And as we sit here in full awareness of where we are right now, we're going to take 3 deep breaths to just anchor in that awareness, to fully accept and love exactly where we are in this moment. I'm going to invite you to empty out your lungs wherever you are right now. And together we're going to breathe in deep all the way down to the base of the spine, holding at the top. And then I'm going to invite you to audibly let it out. Do that one more time, breathing in deep, this time all the way down to the knees, holding at the top and letting it go. And our last breath in, thinking about taking it all the way down to the toes and letting it go. And in this moment of allowing yourself to feel fully cleansed, expanded from your breath, you start to notice and visualize this beautiful beam of light coming down from so far above. You can't even begin to know where it starts. You just trust that it's coming just for you. And as you stand in this spotlight, maybe you start to feel the warmth of the light on the tip of your nose, your forehead, tops of your hands. Remembering that you always have access to this feeling of being held by divine light. You can always tune into this feeling of connection, and you can always ask it to illuminate whatever you need to see, feel, or experience. Taking one more deep breath in this space. And as you exhale, I invite you to bring your palms to your heart in prayer position. Taking a moment of gratitude for bringing yourself here today, for being curious and open. You can rub the palms together to create some warmth, to bring some sensation back into the body, to bring you back into this space. And then you can gently place those palms over your eyes. So when you open up, it's not quite as bright. And whenever you're ready, you can come back to me. Good. Beautiful. And we'll have questions and stuff later. So anything that came up, we got you.
Thank you. Wasn't that just wonderful? So Danielle is the one that I call, you know, when you just get knocked out of alignment multiple days in a row and you just can't do it yourself, because we all need to ask for help, but we're all not that great at asking for help. I call Danielle, could we do a session, please? And just her voice alone when she starts talking puts me into that state of peace. So she's such a gift to me. And she also gave us all a little gift. So on your sheet here, there's a QR code that you can actually scan, and you can get some more practices that you can do at home. And while we're looking at this sheet, I also want to take a minute, because events like this can't be possible without sponsors. And so all of our sponsors are listed here. And so Desert Holistic Health and Med Spa, in your bag, there is a $100 off coupon for services there, and one to give to a friend as well, which is so awesome. Reconnect Mind and Body. We're actually going there tomorrow for a full healing session. So they have cold plunge, red light therapy, sauna, those compression-like sleeves that you can do. So excited. And whoever wins this killer gift bag, whoever wins this is gonna get like a $228 gift certificate there. In your bag, there's also stuff from in the raffle from Silverdome Gardens, who's a CBD company in Oregon, and their body butter, I use it all the time, like when I'm really sore. And you know how you've used CBD products before and you're like, did that even do anything? I can tell it is totally working. And then Ultima and Nutsos are two companies that I use like every day, my all-time favorite nut butter. One of the reasons that I love them is they do like this mix of nuts, and it doesn't have any of that like seed oil or sugar in it, but it includes Brazil nuts. And so if anybody has an issue with like unbalanced hormones, specifically testosterone, Brazil nuts have selenium in them, which is a precursor to testosterone. So why not just give yourself like a little bump and use the Nutso instead? So all of these sponsors, and of course Alex Bradbury from the Sparkle Bar. So when you get home, open your matches and look behind the matchstick. I'll just give you that. So she's so amazing, and she gave her lip oil, and everything that she's done from her Sparkle Bar to the lip oil is so intentional. And that's what she was gonna talk about today. So just put a little plug in for that. Like, what if you, before you did anything, became more intentional and thought about, what is my intention for this? If you're doing something for someone else, how do I want them to feel? What do I want them to experience? So before we do things like this, it's like, what do we want the women in the room to experience? Because then what you're doing is you're taking it off of me and putting it back onto someone else. It's when we get wrapped up in that me. There's also a way to connect with me on there, and of course notes. So if you have questions you want to ask Danielle later, I jot it down really quick, because if you're like me, if you don't write it down and you get to the doctor and you're like, I'm gonna ask all the questions, and then you're like, I forgot all the questions. And then you leave and you're like, oh, I remembered all the questions. So go ahead and write them down. So as you know, things change. We had an opportunity to have other speakers, and now it's Danielle and I. So I sat and I was like, what are the 3 most impactful things that I can give? Because it's always my goal anytime I speak that not only do you feel inspired and you feel really good being here and all day while you leave, but it's aspirational for you. And the big difference is when you just get inspiration, there's no action behind it. And aspiration leads you to take action in your life. So my hope and my goal for each of you is that you take action on something that you learned today. Maybe you download Danielle's guide and you do some of the practices. Or maybe you remember that she told you that you need to breathe. Because I am the queen of not breathing. Not even shallow breathing, like holding my breath. And again, that chronic activation of my nervous system. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 things before we do the Q&A, and they're all going to be something that you can take away. The first thing is, it's really, really easy to feel good and take care of yourself and well-being when things are going good. You know what I'm talking about? Things are in flow. You're doing well with your relationships and your health and your business and career, and things are just rocking and rolling. But what always happens? Life. Life happens. And I want to get us out of the idea of when I get to here, then I'll finally, because there's always going to be life. So I'll take you back to this week in my life and share with you how this happens to all of us. So I've decided that when I'm gonna fly, so I live in Miami Beach, and when I come to the West Coast, I wanna get up early. I wanna take the early flight. I used to say I do not want the early flight anymore, but it's so much better that way because then I get up early and I'm tired enough to go to sleep like West Coast time. And so I get up before the alarm like Christmas. So I set the alarm for 3:30, which I do not set alarms, by the way. I've built my life in a way that I do not want that jarring in the morning. And so I wake up, it is 3:28. Perfect, Christmas, I'm ready to go. I'm going on this trip. This is gonna be so fun. Joel takes me to the airport, that's my husband. I'm going to Fort Lauderdale Airport. It is great. The Miami airport is like ghetto, but the Fort Lauderdale airport is really great. The longest thing was walking through like the ropes, you know? That took me the longest. And I get to the gate and there's not very many people. And I pull out my yoga towel and I put it down and I proceed to do yoga. So I do a yoga practice with Boho Beautiful, which YouTube, go find it. You want it in your life. And then I get on the new like Jeremy Scott Fitness app and I do a mobility flow. Seriously, I'm doing this. And I feel so good. And I get in line and I'm waiting, I'm flying Southwest, so you know, you're by number. And I'm waiting in line and the guy next to me, and he's so nice. And I told him, he's like, it is just such a good morning. And I'm like, woo, things are good. I'm like, I just did this yoga and this mobility flow and we're talking and we both like have coffee and shit's just really good. And so I do have a layover though, because for some reason, like it's real hard, like from Miami, from straight flights or Fort Lauderdale. So I'm laying over in Austin. Perfect, because I had like these little straggler things for work that I was gonna do. I brought my food and I'll get the Wi-Fi. And so I get off in Austin and I had asked for all the invoices for this event because after this, spending time with my best friend who, thank you Crystal for coming and supporting. And then going to Mastermind with Lindsay after that, a retreat. Super excited. And so I said, okay, well, send me all the invoices so I can get them paid or set them up to be paid. So there isn't anything that I'm gonna have to do. I can just relax into those experiences, right? Because you wanna be fully present. And so I get one of the invoices and it is double. And so I was like, whoa, that's a lot. So I was already kind of over budget a little bit. So guess what happens? Bitch business Carmen kicks in. I am no longer in, let me just go ahead and put down my yoga mat in flow, and I start controlling all the things. And I start messaging back and forth, like, what is this? And I pull up the original thing and I like get it on my iPhone and I you know how you can like edit it, and I circle really big and I send it off. And then I'm like sending messages to people saying how upset I am about this. This is a big fucking deal because I told God I was gonna be a good steward of money this year and I'm already over budget and now I'm gonna be over budget more and shit is just not going right. And then for a moment, I came to, and I thought, you know what? I had a really good smoking deal on this service. And I understand where they're coming from. And maybe this isn't about me being over budget or this stupid little amount of money, which it wasn't that big of a deal, and I'm still getting a really smoking deal. Maybe it's about like this old like scarcity thing. Maybe that's a lesson from the universe. Saying like, you need to have an abundance mindset. Pay the freaking invoice, move on. You're grateful for this person being here and having their services and doing all the things that I need to have done. And this is a good thing. It's actually still a really good deal. It's like, oh, bypass that one. Okay, so I'm really good. And then all of a sudden I get a message. Hey, tickets aren't on sale anymore for the event. What? Tickets aren't on sale anymore for the event. Why aren't they on sale anymore for the event? I really want people to come. People said that they're still gonna come, but I don't have the Wi-Fi yet. And so I finally go, I sit down at the Austin airport and the fucking Wi-Fi is not working. Why is the Wi-Fi not working? Why can I not remember my password for Eventbrite? And why is it not like saved in my phone? So I finally like messaging like Kathy's on my team. Thank you to Kathy for arranging all of this. She did so wonderful. And so I finally figure it out and like I get my hotspot going, and then I'm like, okay, Carmen, you just need to take a minute, and so you need to go ahead and eat your food that you brought. So I get out my food, and I love food, and I love making healthy food, and I look at it, and it's chicken and broccoli and cauliflower and kabocha squash, and it's cold. And I don't mind eating cold food usually, but I'm in that state, and so I'm like, oh, this sucks. So as Danielle was talking about, it's kicking in. The thing is kicking in that's built into all of us. The negativity, that in our subconscious, that once it rains for the day is gonna be shitty. Once the things start going bad, then everything starts going bad and it starts going downhill. Can anybody relate to this? That it just keeps going and going and going and going. So I'm gonna take a break because I have these resources that I can, I can help with this. I can do this. I can self-resource myself. So I'm gonna eat and the food's just not that good. So I'm like, fine, well, I'm gonna pack my stuff up and I'm gonna figure out how I can get this Wi-Fi going because I have those work things that I really need to do. And so then I go and I'm like, I better get coffee. And then all the coffee line is really long because that's what I need right in that moment is coffee. No, I don't need coffee in that moment. So I sit down and I just cannot even focus on what is happening in front of me. And then Laura sends me a voice note. I was like, oh yay, I got a voice note from Laura. This is going to make my day. It's gonna totally shift. And she's like, Carmen, I am so sorry. I'm so sick. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Like, there's nothing she could do about it. It's not her fault. But then it's like, and I had, by the way, I had gotten up at 3:30 and I started my period, but that's okay. Yeah. So I'm like in sync kind of with the new moon. So all these things are happening and I cannot focus. All I need to do is put this on this Canva document and then just send it to Staples and I need to send an email. I can't do it. Like I can't focus. I shut the computer. Like I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna fill up my water bottle. I'm completely out of water. I go to the bathroom and it's almost time to board the plane. And I have like up front seating or whatever, and I don't want to miss it. And so I'm waiting for the water bottle fill up. I have to get on the plane. I have no water. So this might sound like not a big deal to you, but I drink like over a gallon of water a day. I need fucking water. And so now I'm getting on the plane. The work's not done. All the things are going wrong. And I have no water. I need to meditate. So I sit down. And they always tell you, how they always tell you that it's full, like plane's full, hurry up, put your shit in, blah, blah, blah. And so I sit down, someone's sitting at the window, I sit on the aisle because I drink a lot of water and I get up to pee. So I'm like, I'm gonna meditate. Someone hits me in the head with the suitcase. This is going really well. One of my favorite go-to meditations when shit's hitting the fan, I play it and then it's like not playing for some reason. It's fine. I'm trying to tell myself it's fine. Just listen to a song and just take some deep breaths. And then a lady wants to come in because the plane's full, and so she sits in the middle, and then she has to get up 3 times to get something out of her bag. And then I just said, I'm not gonna work. I'm not gonna do that. I have to stop thinking about this. Because when your brain starts and you just start thinking, and I'm projecting and thinking of all the things, and I know I need to stop it, but I couldn't stop it in that moment. And in that moment, I thought, well, why is this so bad for me? And what I discovered was it was so bad because I was out of my normal environment. So if you've never been to Miami Beach, I call it my bliss bubble. I don't even have to do anything. I just go outside. I just reset the whole system, come back in, everything is great. I can go back to being guided and supported. But I'm in the Austin airport that all of a sudden, before I got on the plane, seemed like there was 5,000 more people, there was 20 screaming babies, I'm on the plane, and I can't do it. So I decide that I'm not gonna do any work, that I reached out to a few people and vented, so I got it out. And then I'm gonna watch something on TV because after this meditation thing is not working, getting hit in the head and not playing. So I watch J-Lo's Marry Me. Not I would say the best movie, right? But I watched most of it. And so here's what I got from this, and here's the lesson that I got from that. Was she was supposed to marry this, but at the beginning she's supposed to marry this big pop star, and she's a pop star, and then what happens is she sees this video of her fiance cheating on her with her assistant, and so then at the beginning she says, I'm gonna marry someone else. There's the dude standing in the audience, and she marries him. And so what I got from that, and then their life and how they work together, if you haven't seen it, that's kind of a summation of that, was why are we taking life so damn seriously? Is it really that serious, these things? I'm so happy that I was able to have the means in the abundant mindset to pay the invoice, and I still had a really smoking deal, but I was so set on my plan. I was so set on my plan that who the speakers were gonna be. But this is even better how this is turning out now. And maybe you all needed something a little bit different. And so not to be so rigid, not to be so serious. And so I'm feeling better. So I was able to soothe myself. And what I want you to hear from that is I want you to understand, and something I know Lindsay and I were talking about is like, what is your reaction and responses? So I want you to write this question down on your notes page and not answer it yet, but how do you react when you feel like you're backed into a corner? So how I react when I feel like I'm backed into a corner, which means like I don't have a lot of resources, I need to just like figure it out, is like double down. Like when some of these things were happening, I was like, get on the Google, figure it out. You're gonna figure this out, you're gonna make it happen. Big bitch Carmen is coming out and we are making things happen, instead of like letting go of the control. And so this stupid Marry Me movie said, let go of the control, stop being so rigid all the time. Everything is gonna work out. You're always safe, you're always supported. And so I'm feeling so much better. So like, I better go to the bathroom. It's been a while since I went to the bathroom. So I go and you get in there. So I'm in there, pull my pants down, sit down, and I look down. I had bled through my tampon, through my underwear, through my gray sweats. Huge ass stain that you can see when I bend over. And immediately, what do? I just start cracking up laughing. Like, there's this thing that we did at my last retreat. I was actually here at Marriott at McDowell Mountains in Scottsdale. Beautiful. If you've never been there, the staff there is amazing. But this thing, like when we have good synchronicities happen in our life, and we always say like, I can't believe that happened. I was like, no, we're not saying that anymore. We're saying, of course that happened, thank you. But it's usually like when something we think is good. In that moment, to me, that was good. It like took me out of my logical brain and back into like, who gives a shit? I have a big ass red stain that everybody probably saw when I walked to the bathroom, but it doesn't even matter. And I have to get back up and walk to my seat because I don't even have any tampons with me. And how did I not even notice sitting there that this was happening anyways? But in that moment, I said, of course that happened. Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to have this sweatshirt that I can tie around my waist, that I can go get the tampon and then go to the other up front bathroom and get this situation figured out. So life happens, but it's how we choose to respond to it. Because what was I doing that whole time? I was reacting in the moment with my subconscious programming, my fear about not having enough money, about scarcity from old, right? Reacting that I need to control everything because control is a false sense of safety, and I want to feel safe, I want to feel seen, I want to feel soothed, I want to feel secure, so I'm trying to control everything. So how do you guys react when you're backed into a corner? Like, when was the last time you felt like you didn't have a resource? Take a moment and think about that. And this could be something you could use in your journaling practice, and if you don't have a journaling practice, whoever wins this basket is getting this like first version copy that wasn't even for sale yet of the journal that we did this year. It's called the Be the Light Transformation Journal on Amazon. So a little plug for that. But how do you react? You know, it's like, how do we want to respond? How could we more often respond? So when that feeling that we don't want comes in, what if that could be like our like flashlight of like, okay, in this moment, this is when I usually do this. I need to take a moment so I can respond versus react. And really respond like how you're truly aligned and how you truly want to respond as your highest self. So I wanted to give that to you today as a way to know that I was able to get back to feeling good. I was able to get back to the 3:30 to 3:29 wake up, the yoga, the talking to the guy in the line at the coffee shop. But it took reaching out to others, venting, getting it out, because when you say it out loud, then it lets it go and you're taking your power back. It took me thinking about like, how am I just reacting in this situation, and how do I want to react, and how could things be different? And then also speaking that out loud. Like I said that, I was going back and forth with the vendor, and I finally said, you know what, this is actually a really nice lesson for me. Thank you. You know, because sometimes we make mistakes too. We don't always respond. We react a lot. So the piece about relationships. So I like that you brought that up. And when I was sitting with this, because I do truly think that relationships are your greatest teacher. Like I think Joel is my absolute greatest teacher. But can you think about the last time, it doesn't have to be your significant other, but can you think about the last time you were let down? Like specifically think about it. What expectations did you have prior to being let down? Did you have expectations? Raise your hand if maybe you had an expectation. Yeah. What would it have been like if you didn't have that expectation and then you went into the situation without an expectation and you allowed that person to thrive and be as they were to be, seeing with fresh eyes, seeing what you could experience and get curious around in the relationship? Would your feeling have been different? So that's the first thing. It's something that you can sit with. Because guess what? Most of the time our expectations, we're not communicating them. And the other person, guess what? They're not a fucking mind reader. Well, maybe if we were with Danielle, but other than that, I love you. They're not mind readers. And if we're not communicating it, then they don't know. And then we get upset. And then they see that we're upset, and then it triggers something in them from something that's happened in the past, and then it all just goes to shit. And so what if at the beginning we just let go of the expectation? And then the last thing on the relationships is, have you ever said to yourself, I wish so-and-so would do this, would just do this? Yeah. I wish Joel would plan more like romantic, intimate experiences. I've said that to myself a lot, right? Like, I just don't want to like get in there every time. I want it to be like romantic, and I want to feel loved and everything great. And I would say that to myself, and then it wouldn't happen. And then, you know, the expectation, and then like, oh, why doesn't he do more romantic things? Well, first of all, I didn't ask him to. Second of all, and most importantly, I did what I teach all of my clients is like, how are you doing that? Are you cleaning up your side of the street? So here's what I want you to take away. Am I cleaning up my side of the street? So am I planning romantic, intimate experiences? Guess what the answer was? No, I was not. And what if I planned one? Then guess what? He'd be like, ooh, that was really fun. I'm gonna plan one now. You know, we can talk about it. So how are you cleaning up your side of the street? And this could be with any relationship at all. Your sister, your friend, your mom. Like, if you want them to do something, well, check yourself first. Old saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself. So who wants to know about the ultimate health hack? Like the way to have longevity in health, the way to feel light and free in your body all the time, right? The way to have balanced hormones. Anybody have any guesses? Like I want to have it in suspense because I had to talk about health because Laura's not here and she is like the queen of like all the health things. You're gonna get an email after this. There will be a link to her Instagram. She's worth a follow if you are not following her because she is freaking amazing and a source of just so much great information. So last year I was not feeling well. I was tired every single day. Things just weren't right. It was like the first time I had ever thought about, because I was diagnosed with MS when I was 25, and it was the first time in like years that I've really ever thought about, maybe this is like affecting me. But what I came to learn was that my hormones were off. I also came to learn that even though I had a great morning routine, I exercised and I ate good, man, if you see my Instagram stories, shit gets real on there, like big ass salad every day, vegetables, good proteins, healthy fat, all the things, you can follow along. Like I'm doing all the things, but I still feel bad. So one of the biggest things that I found was my body was not processing blood sugar right. So I would wake up. When we wake up in the morning, our fasted blood sugar, our glucose, right? So let's talk about, does everybody understand? Let me give you like a snippet of like how that works in our body. So how this works in our body is when you eat things that have carbohydrates, then it turns into glucose. And what happens is your body wants to pump insulin in, so it will help it store into the cells. And it's stored in your muscle, in your liver. And then if you overeat maybe some of them, it could store as like fat cells, right? So that's why carbs get a bad rep. I'm not up here saying carbs are bad, by the way. But what happens sometimes is we get excess insulin in our bloodstream for a variety of reasons. And excess insulin means excess inflammation in our body, means it can throw off a lot of things. So when you wake up in the morning, you should have fasting glucose. I like to have it like, like around like 80. But I was waking up in the morning and it was like closer to like 100. Sometimes it was over 100. It was kind of crazy. I was like, why is this so high? And then I would go through and I was wearing a continuous glucose monitor from Levels, so like someone would that was diabetic. And so there was an app on my phone and it would tell me what my blood sugar was at all the time, all the time, all the time. And so here's what I've learned and the things that you can do to make sure that your blood sugar is staying stable. The first thing is chronic stress fucks it up. So even if you're like me, really healthy, eating all the things, I'm a nutritionist, I know what to eat, I'm working out all the time, I'm doing all the things, is I was so chronically activating my nervous system, even if up here I didn't think that I was stressed. There's two hormones that are released in our body, cortisol and epinephrine, and those two things are like adversaries to insulin. And so they are released and they want more insulin to go, and insulin is trying to get rid of and pump the glucose out, right? And so it's just chronically high because of stress. So that's the first thing that you can do. And we don't think about this. We think about, I'm gonna eat this balanced meal. Are you eating it in front of the TV? Are you eating it in the car? Are you taking time to chew? So I sit down and actually eat my meals now because I do want to get into rest and digest. So stress affects that so much, and of course so many other things in our body. The second thing that you can do is after you eat a meal, go for a walk. If you go for a walk, there's been multiple studies that have shown that actually helps slow the glucose and blood sugar spike. Because what we don't want to have is blood sugar variability, which means you eat and it goes way up, and then it drops back down, and then it goes way up, and then it drops back down. That creates so much stress and pressure on our body because we have to be releasing so much insulin. And so over time, our bodies don't process the insulin properly. And so if you're walking after your meal, and then the last thing that you could do is change the order that you're eating the foods on your plate. And this is really, really key. There's a lot of great research around. So let's say you have your wonderful balanced meal and it has some chicken on it, so you have your protein, and you love guacamole, and so you have a little bit of guacamole, and you have some of your favorite vegetables, and then you have some potatoes, which are your carbohydrates. So if you eat the protein and the fat first, and then the carbohydrates last, it slows that huge curve, and it'll make it, instead of so spiky, it'll make it like this. And what I want you to hear me say is, you're still eating the food that you love and enjoy, but you're just eating it in a different order, and you're doing it not stressed, and then you're going for a walk after. Those are 3 really simple things that you can do that can make a really huge difference. And you don't have to wear one of those continuous glucose monitors. I just like geek out on all the things because I want to know all the things about health. So those are definitely 3 things that you could do. So those are my well-being hacks. When life hits you, figure out how you normally react, and then figure out how you want to respond and start moving closer and closer to that. Clean up your side of the street in the relationships. And think about stress. Think about how you're eating, what types of foods you're eating, how you're eating them, because your blood sugar is really important to regulate. I just want to have an invitation for everyone. I want you all to take up the challenge to join me to be the one to show the world how fucking great life really is. And that's by being an example every day of not being so rigid, softening, receiving, feeling, asking for help, talking and sharing in such a vulnerable way that allows you to feel so supported and so seen. Because if we could all show up each and every day with the mindset of not like that loop that I was on the other day when I was on the airplane, like shit's just going downhill because my old subconscious programming, if we can wake up and be like, how do I want to feel today? I'm going to do that. That's going to be my intention. And just go for it. Like, what if more people were like the guy in the line at the airport talking about how great the coffee was, and we're standing in an airport line saying how wonderful the day is, and we spread that love and joy throughout. So whenever you're having a bad time, a hard time, you start self-isolating, you're feeling lonely, shit's hitting the fan, just say, like, how can I be the one to show the world how great life truly is in this moment? Like, be the example. Because we all have that in you. And you can see it in me because it's in you. And so it's in all of us.